The Forbidden Templar map that rewrites everything we know about history. There are artifacts capable of unsettling scholars, challenging institutions, and destabilizing everything humanity believes about its past. But among all relics buried beneath dust, stone, and secrecy, one object has haunted the whispers of archivists and secret orders for centuries. A Forbidden Templar map said to contain coastlines, routes, mountains, and territories impossible for medieval Europe to have known. It is an artifact that defies chronology, mocks the limits of medieval exploration, and forces anyone who gazes upon it to accept a chilling truth. The Knights Templar knew far more about the world than any empire of their time. Its lines are too accurate, its symbols too advanced, its structure too deliberate. It is not a map created to guide travelers. It is a map created to protect a revelation. Imagine a document inked by hands, trained not merely in cartography, but in ritual secrecy, revealing lands across oceans no European sails had supposedly reached. A map folded into silence, hidden in cloisters, carried by knights who vanished without explanation, and pursued by inquisitors desperate to erase every trace of it. This is not a legend born from imagination. It is a threat to the accepted timeline of human exploration. Its coastlines match modern satellite images with impossible precision. Its representation of continents long unknown to Europe suggests a world far more connected, ancient, and enigmatic than historians dare admit. The Templars, often reduced to warrior monks in simplified history books, were far more than guardians of pilgrims. They were archivists of forbidden knowledge, explorers who journeyed beyond sanctioned borders, and custodians of relics other civilizations attempted to destroy. Their fleets, called mere merchant vessels by those who feared their influence, appear in records only to disappear into oceans and silence. What if these disappearances were not accidents? What if these voyages were deliberate, charted on a map meant to remain hidden until humanity was ready to face the truth of its own forgotten origins? This Forbidden Templar map is not a mere drawing. It is a chronicle encoded in ink. It presents the world as it truly was, not as medieval scholars imagined it. It places familiar cities beside unknown territories, rivers discovered centuries later, and enormous landmasses erased from traditional narratives. Every marking carries a geometric precision found only in secret Templar manuscripts and Eastern sources unavailable to most of Europe. Whether the knowledge came from ancient civilizations, lost empires, or voyages unrecorded, the implication remains the same. The Templars possessed a blueprint of the world long before its official discovery. The existence of such a map illuminates the fear that fueled the Crusades against the Templar Order. Kings feared their independence. The Vatican feared their knowledge. Inquisitors feared their archives. Their execution was not driven by accusations of heresy, but by the threat of enlightenment. They held information capable of destabilizing monarchies, undermining doctrine, and revealing a human history that reached further and deeper than medieval minds could comprehend. Their downfall was not justice. It was containment. Tonight, this story unfolds before you. You will cross deserts mapped centuries too early, navigate coastlines unexplored by medieval Europe, walk through ruined temples whose locations match the map's impossible coordinates, and follow the silent trail of a knowledge humanity was not meant to inherit. The Forbidden Map is not just an artifact. It is a doorway into a lost world, and now, as it resurfaces, it threatens to rewrite history itself.
To understand the weight of the Forbidden Templar map, one must abandon the comfortable illusion that history is complete. What we call history is not a record of truth. It is a carefully curated narrative shaped by rulers who needed obedience more than accuracy. Chronicles are edited, rewritten, redacted, and buried. Whole civilizations vanish from textbooks. Entire timelines are compressed to protect religious or political agendas. Beneath this constructed reality lies another history, one made of suppressed archives, vanished expeditions, forbidden manuscripts, and knowledge preserved only by those willing to die for it. Among such guardians, the Knights Templar stand unmatched. The Templars did not rise to power through wealth alone. Their influence grew because of what they discovered. As they traveled across continents, they collected maps, scrolls, relics, and inscriptions. They documented symbols ignored by scholars, explored ruins others feared, and gathered fragments of ancient wisdom lost to most of Europe. Their libraries became repositories of forgotten civilizations, advanced geometry, astronomical knowledge, and records of lands far beyond the boundaries of medieval imagination. It was only a matter of time before this knowledge became a threat. Among their archives, the Forbidden Map holds the greatest weight. References to it appear in letters written in code, inventories confiscated by inquisitors, and confessions extracted under torture. Scholars dismissed these hints as fantasies because no one had ever seen the map, until fragments resurfaced in a private collection, confirming its existence. In those fragments were coastlines matching modern satellite images, continents drawn with unnerving accuracy, and symbols indicating trade routes older than recorded history. These discoveries do not simply add to the world's history, they contradict it entirely. If the Templars possessed this map, then they inherited knowledge from civilizations older than the Roman Empire, older than the Greek philosophers, perhaps even older than the biblical timelines honored by the Church. This revelation reframes their purpose. They were not protectors of the Holy Land alone. They were protectors of ancient truth, explorers of forgotten worlds, and custodians of knowledge that destabilized the structure of medieval society. Every secret they guarded threatened to unravel the theological and political framework of Europe. This is why they were feared. The Church did not fear their armies, it feared their knowledge. A world mapped before Europe's sanctioned timeline undermined doctrine, questioned dominion, and challenged divine chronology. If continents existed beyond the borders of European awareness, then the Church's claim to universal authority collapsed. If the Templars knew this, then they represented not rebellion, but revelation. Tonight, you step into their story. As we follow the Forbidden Map through oceans, deserts, mountains, and lost temples, we will decode its symbols, interpret its geometry, and trace the silent legacy it preserves. You are about to witness a version of history that survived in darkness, hidden for centuries by those who understood its power. When this journey ends, the world you thought you knew will be forever changed. The existence of the Forbidden Templar Map begins with an expedition erased from every official chronicle. A voyage referenced only in fragmented letters, coded symbols, and testimonies recorded under relentless interrogation. Long before the fall of the Order, a select group of knights vanished from European records, departing on a mission described only as the passage beyond the edge of the world. Their fleet was small, their departure concealed, and their purpose entrusted to a circle so secretive that even high-ranking commanders remained unaware of its true nature. What followed was not a crusade, not a pilgrimage, but a silent expedition designed to gather information that could alter the fabric of medieval understanding. Their disappearance was intentional, their destination forbidden, and their return obscured behind layers of silence. This silent expedition operated under the direct guidance of the Grand Master and a council of initiates trained in ancient geometry, astronomy, and languages no longer spoken in Europe. They were not chosen for their skill with the sword, but for their ability to read symbols etched into ruins across the East, decode celestial patterns, and interpret knowledge carried from civilizations older than the Crusades themselves. These knights traveled under false banners, concealed the cross beneath neutral cloaks, and carried manuscripts wrapped in wax to protect them from sea, fire, and betrayal. Their mission required secrecy because the truth they sought would threaten both kings and priests. Their destination lay across waters Europe pretended did not exist, and their survival depended on the silence surrounding their journey. The records preserved by their scribes, though fragmented, reveal constellations drawn from vantage points impossible for medieval sailors, coastlines suggesting contact with distant lands, and diagrams of rivers never encountered in Europe. Their notes describe encounters with cultures foreign to Crusader chronicles, inscriptions carved into stones unlike anything in the Mediterranean, and architectural remnants positioned with mathematical precision, rivaling ancient wonders. The level of detail in their observations indicates that the voyage was neither accidental nor exploratory. It was purposeful. It followed a route already known to someone, or traced from scrolls inherited from a civilization whose existence challenges the very timeline accepted by modern historians. The Forbidden Templar Map, thought to have emerged from this expedition, contains elements matching their descriptions. Its lines follow the curvature of continents not drawn by Europeans for centuries. Its cartographic accuracy surpasses medieval limitations, revealing coastlines recognizable only through modern geodesy. The symbols scattered across the map correspond to celestial positions traceable to a specific era, suggesting the document was created using knowledge predating the Templars themselves. This raises the question of origin, yet no question is spoken. The map simply exists as undeniable proof that the expedition brought back information Europe was not prepared to accept. Its accuracy implies either advanced navigation or access to records no medieval order should have possessed. When the fleet finally returned, the knights disembarked in secrecy, their ships damaged, their numbers reduced, and their morale subdued by what they had witnessed. They carried chests sealed with iron brackets, manuscripts wrapped in tar-soaked cloths, and relics whose inscriptions baffled even their most erudite scholars. Their return sparked immediate suspicion among those who feared the Templars' growing knowledge. Within months, attempts were made to confiscate their cargo. Letters hint at royal envoys searching ports, inquisitors questioning dockworkers, and rival factions within the church attempting to intercept the expedition's findings. The knights responded by hiding their archives within a network of fortified sites, ensuring the map would not fall into the hands of those who sought to destroy it. Ultimately, the silent expedition became a catalyst for the Templars' downfall. Kings who once relied on the order began to fear what they had learned. The Church, already threatened by their independence, saw in the returning fleet a sign that the Templars had crossed boundaries both theological and political. The forbidden map was not a treasure. It was evidence. Evidence that the world did not begin and end within the borders drawn by medieval rulers. Evidence that knowledge existed beyond the control of crown or cross. Evidence that the Templars had touched a truth powerful enough to reshape human history. And so the silent expedition was erased, its survivors silenced, and its discoveries buried beneath accusations that served as the final curtain over a story the world was never meant to hear. The Forbidden Templar map is not simply a collection of coastlines and rivers drawn with uncanny precision. It is a masterpiece of sacred geometry embedded within a framework of ancient knowledge. Its lines follow ratios found in the construction of Eastern temples, Egyptian monuments, and pre-classical structures, whose architects understood mathematics far beyond their eras. The curves of the continents align with geometric patterns used by astronomer priests in civilizations predating recorded history. Every intersection is intentional, every angle deliberate, every symbol placed within a grid system that suggests the map was constructed not only to represent physical land, but to reflect cosmological order. The cartographer responsible for this work was not merely mapping the Earth. He was mapping the interplay between heaven and world, a principle the Templars believed revealed divine truth hidden beneath creation. At the heart of the map lies a sequence of golden ratios that mirror the proportions of sacred architecture across continents. These ratios appear in the layout of ancient cities long forgotten, in the positioning of monumental structures, and in celestial alignments used to mark solstices and equinoxes. The precision suggests an advanced understanding of geometry that medieval Europe lacked. And yet, the Templars held fragments of this knowledge gathered from their expeditions through the Holy Land, Persia, Armenia, and regions whose libraries preserved traces of an older world. Their scribes, trained to merge geometry with theology, recognized the patterns and added annotations indicating that the map's design mirrored the divine order they believed shaped human destiny. The map is a blueprint of Earth, constructed through a spiritual lens, linking land and cosmos through ratios meant to be deciphered by the initiated. The symbols scattered along the map's margins complicate its interpretation further. They resemble a fusion of Phoenician markings, Coptic abbreviations, Greek shorthand, and characters from lost Semitic scripts known only to a handful of scholars. These symbols appear near coastlines inaccessible to medieval sailors, and next to mountains that Europe did not believe existed. Their placement is too coherent to be accidental. Each symbol aligns with a geometric point on the map's internal grid, suggesting a coded language describing more than geography. Some symbols correlate with astronomical constellations, while others match markers found on megalithic structures predating the Templars by thousands of years. It is as though the map is a palimpsest, layering knowledge from different epochs into a single, unified representation of a forgotten world. What unsettles modern historians is that the map anticipates lands that Europe would discover centuries later. The delineation of a vast western coastline mirrors the Atlantic edge of the Americas with eerie accuracy. River mouths, mountain ranges, and gulf shapes appear nearly exact when overlaid on contemporary satellite images. The contours are too detailed to be speculative. They reveal first-hand observation or access to ancient sources whose creators possessed maritime capabilities lost long before the medieval era. This accuracy strikes at the core of conventional historical models. It suggests that long-distance travel was achievable by civilizations erased from mainstream chronologies, and that the Templars inherited this knowledge through encounters with Eastern scholars, buried archives, or distant cultures whose memory has faded into myth. The geometry of the Forbidden Map also aligns with Templar architecture. Churches built by the Order across Europe follow structural proportions identical to those embedded in the map's framework. Round churches mirror astronomical markers, floor plans reflect the same sacred ratios, and the placement of altars corresponds to the geometric points visible in the map's grid. This connection implies that the map influenced the Templars' architectural decisions, shaping their buildings as symbolic reflections of a world whose true form they believed held divine significance. Their constructions were not just places of worship, they were coded messages, monuments to a secret cosmology passed through the Order's highest ranks. The map was their compass not only for land but for meaning. Such geometric precision reveals why the Templars guarded this document with absolute secrecy. A map capable of predicting coastlines unknown to medieval Europe, built upon sacred ratios shared across vanished civilizations, represented more than geographic knowledge. It was evidence of a world system older than the Church, older than Rome, older than any empire that claimed dominion over human history. The map challenged the authority of those who defined the limits of the world and dictated its narrative. It offered a blueprint for understanding humanity's forgotten origins, and for that reason, it had to be concealed. Its geometry was a doorway to truths that threatened the foundations of medieval power, and so the Templars hid it away, preserving its mysteries for a future in which someone might finally understand the world as they once did. The Forbidden Templar map did not emerge from the imagination of a medieval cartographer. Its contours, symbols, and internal structure point to a lineage of knowledge far older than the Templar Order itself. Beneath its ink lies the undeniable imprint of civilizations whose intellectual traditions vanished long before the Crusades. Traces of Babylonian astronomy, Egyptian sacred geometry, Phoenician navigation, and even pre-classical maritime cultures appear embedded within its design. These elements do not coexist by coincidence. They reveal that the map was constructed from sources drawn across time, geography, and forgotten empires. The Templars, during their expeditions in the East, encountered fragments of ancient texts preserved in monasteries, buried archives, and concealed chambers beneath ruined temples. From these fragments, a blueprint of the world began to resurface, pieced together by scribes capable of recognizing echoes of knowledge older than the Roman Empire. As the Templars traveled through the Levant, they gained access to repositories of learning hidden from Western scholars. In Antioch, they encountered scrolls mapping astronomical cycles traced by ancient priesthoods. In Jerusalem, they uncovered relics inscribed with measurements linking Earth to celestial coordinates. In Armenia and Persia, they crossed paths with scholars whose ancestors preserved remnants of empires that documented lands beyond the known world. Some of these manuscripts described trade routes extending westward across vast waters, connecting distant peoples through systems of navigation erased from later chronologies. These encounters expanded the Templars' worldview, revealing that the borders drawn by medieval Europe represented only a fraction of the world as it once was understood. Within the ruins of ancient libraries, The Templars found references to maritime cultures capable of crossing oceans long before European ships were engineered for such journeys. Phoenician inscriptions hinted at expeditions beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Carved reliefs in Egyptian temples depicted foreign visitors bearing gifts of unfamiliar metals and plants. Tales recited by desert scholars spoke of lands far to the west, where great rivers and towering forests covered territories unknown to classical historians. The Templars documented everything, collecting symbols, diagrams, and measurements that would later form the foundation of the Forbidden Map. Their discoveries did not represent a single piece of forgotten knowledge. They represented an entire network of ancient traditions converging through time. The Templars were not the first to attempt to unify these fragments, but they were the first in centuries to possess the resources, literacy, and geographical range necessary to interpret them. Their scribes compared star charts found in Eastern manuscripts to geometric grids drawn in North African ruins. They studied inscriptions lying beneath collapsed temples near the Dead Sea, correlating symbols with patterns found in artifacts from as far away as the Caucasus. They acquired texts preserved by minority communities whose ancestors had fled collapsing empires, carrying their libraries into isolated mountain fortresses. Each discovery added another layer to the map's construction, forming a mosaic of ancient knowledge seamlessly integrated into a coherent representation of the world. The Forbidden Map gained its accuracy not through medieval exploration, but through resurrection. It resurrected knowledge buried beneath centuries of war, conquest, disaster, and suppression. It reflected the work of civilizations whose contributions were erased by fires that consumed libraries, floods that overtook cities, and authorities who sought to control the narrative of human origins. The map defied medieval chronology because it was never medieval in origin. The Templars simply became the custodians of a legacy older than any kingdom in Europe. They were not map-makers. They were translators. They translated forgotten worlds into lines, symbols, and geometry that could survive the collapse of civilizations and the rise of dogma. This ancient inheritance threatened the stability of medieval power. If the Templars possessed knowledge proving that global cultures existed beyond Europe's awareness, then doctrines claiming exclusive divine lineage could no longer remain unchallenged. If the map demonstrated advanced navigation techniques predating Christian and Islamic timelines, then entire theological frameworks collapsed. The map served as evidence that the world was far older, larger, and more interconnected than medieval authorities admitted. By guarding these ancient sources, the Templars guarded a truth that endangered the narrative constructed by kings and clergy. Their downfall was not rooted in gold or land, but in knowledge. Knowledge that exposed the fragility of the version of history enforced by those in power. The Forbidden Templar map did not circulate freely within the order. Its existence was known only to a select group of initiates, bound by oaths older than the Templar rule itself. These men formed an inner circle, a silent brotherhood operating in parallel to the public hierarchy of knights, sergeants, and commanders. Their identities were concealed, even from high-ranking officials, their duties hidden beneath layers of ritual and encoded communication. They were not chosen for their martial skill, but for their capacity to endure knowledge that could fracture the world. Their training blended mathematics, theology, linguistics, and a form of contemplative discipline designed to shield the mind from the weight of revelations capable of destabilizing medieval society. To these initiates, the map was not a tool, but a key, unlocking truths meant only for those able to withstand them. Each initiate underwent a rite of passage, requiring complete severance from worldly allegiances. They abandoned family names, lands, and personal ambitions, becoming vessels for the preservation of knowledge rather than agents of political power. Their primary responsibility was not to defend pilgrims or protect trade routes, but to guard the archives containing manuscripts gathered across decades of Templar expeditions. The Forbidden Map, stored in a chamber accessible only through geometric sequences known to this inner circle, represented the culmination of their mission. They studied its lines by candlelight, tracing coastlines that contradicted official doctrine and symbols pointing to civilizations forgotten by Europe. Over time, they decoded its structure, understanding that its geometry confirmed what ancient sources had whispered. The world was interconnected long before medieval rulers sought to narrow its boundaries. These initiates maintained secrecy through systems of encoded correspondence that concealed information even from fellow Templars. Letters discussing the map used metaphors drawn from scripture and astronomy, enabling communication without exposing the artifact to interception. When the Order expanded into new regions, these men traveled discreetly to inspect ruins, collect artifacts, and secure manuscripts related to the map's origins. Their role required patience, caution, and a profound loyalty to truth, rather than to earthly authority. They believed that the map represented a fragment of divine knowledge, preserved not by accident, but by design. To them, protecting it was a sacred duty, one that transcended the political conflicts of medieval Europe. The presence of this inner circle created tension within the Order. Some commanders suspected the existence of hidden knowledge, but lacked the authority to confront it. Others feared that the initiates possessed influence beyond the Grand Master, operating under mandates unknown to the broader Templar leadership. This ambiguity generated rumors that fueled both admiration and suspicion. Yet the initiates remained steadfast, their loyalty existing solely within the boundaries of the map's preservation. They understood that the artifact represented a threat to rulers who relied on ignorance to maintain control. Protecting it meant protecting humanity's forgotten heritage, even if doing so placed the Order in jeopardy. When accusations arose against the Templars, it was these initiates who acted first. They concealed the map within a network of hidden chambers, distributing fragments of its knowledge across multiple strongholds. Some pieces were integrated into architectural designs, others were encoded into manuscripts disguised as theological commentaries. A few were entrusted to allied scholars who understood their value, but not their origin. As inquisitors moved to seize Templar properties, the inner circle disbanded, each initiate carrying a portion of the map's secret to prevent it from falling into hostile hands. Their dispersal marked the beginning of the artifact's disappearance from recorded history. What remained was silence, deliberate, strategic, and absolute. The legacy of these initiates endures in the shadows of forgotten fortresses, in the geometry of round churches, and in manuscripts whose true meaning remains obscured beneath layers of coded symbolism. Their devotion ensured that the forbidden map survived the destruction of the Order, escaping the flames that consumed countless Templar archives. They understood that truth cannot be erased by decree or fire. It can only be hidden until the world is ready to receive it. Through their sacrifice, the map became not merely a relic, but a testament to the resilience of knowledge. It continues to whisper its secrets to those who seek the silent traces of history left behind by men who protected a vision of the world far beyond the limits imposed by medieval minds. The night the Forbidden Templar map was nearly destroyed remains one of the most silent yet decisive turning points in medieval history. It unfolded within stone walls, lit by torches burning with an urgency that reflected the tension gripping the Templar leadership. Word had reached them that a royal decree, disguised as a call for taxation, masked a deeper intent: the seizure of all Templar archives across Western Europe. Spies embedded in court circles revealed the truth. The king sought not their wealth, but their knowledge, specifically the documents whose existence he feared more than any army. Among these, the forbidden map stood at the center of his paranoia. Its mere possession by the Order threatened to expose a version of world history capable of undermining every power structure built upon controlled narratives. As soldiers marched through the night toward key Templar strongholds, the Order faced a decision that would determine whether the map survived or vanished forever. Within the fortress entrusted with the map's protection, the atmosphere was charged with an unspoken understanding. The initiates and commanders present recognized that their enemies would not stop at confiscation. They would burn the archives, torture the scribes, and erase every trace of the truth preserved within those walls. The map, sealed inside a chamber accessible only through geometric alignment sequences, represented the culmination of centuries of exploration and ancient inheritance. Losing it meant losing the key to humanity's forgotten past. Keeping it meant risking the destruction of the entire Order. As the sound of distant hooves grew louder, the Templars gathered in the inner sanctum, their faces illuminated by flickering torchlight as they prepared for a decision no knight was trained to make. Some argued that the map should be destroyed to prevent its misuse. Even the knowledge it contained could destabilize kingdoms, ignite wars, or fall into the hands of those who sought to weaponize it. The geometry encoded within its design held secrets capable of altering navigation, architecture, and theology. If captured, the map would not remain hidden. It would be exploited. Others insisted that destroying the map would betray the centuries of scholars, travelers, and civilizations whose fragments had built its foundation. To burn it was to burn the hidden lineage of ancient cultures and silence the voices of forgotten worlds. The initiates, who had dedicated their lives to decoding its symbols, defended the map as a sacred inheritance entrusted to them by history itself. The tension between preservation and protection filled the chamber with a gravity that rivaled any battlefield. As the debate escalated, the fortress shook with the tremors of a gate forced open. Royal soldiers and inquisitorial agents advanced through the outer courtyard, breaking through layer after layer of Templar defense. The knights within the sanctum knew they had minutes at most. In that moment, the Grand Inspector of the Inner Circle stepped forward, carrying a small iron chest containing tools for concealing sacred manuscripts. With a calmness forged through decades of silent duty, he declared that no enemy would ever lay eyes upon the map. He would not destroy it, nor would he allow it to be taken. Instead, he proposed a final act of concealment, one that required sacrifice. The map would be divided into sections, each fragment transported through hidden tunnels by initiates trained for this moment, dispersing the knowledge across multiple regions to ensure that even if one piece were lost, the truth would never disappear entirely. The plan unfolded with precision. The initiates retrieved the map, unfolding it for what would be the last time within Templar walls. They separated its sections along geometric lines, each division following ratios that maintained the integrity of its coded structure. These fragments were placed into metal cylinders coated in resin to protect them from water and fire. The initiates then descended into subterranean passages built beneath the fortress, each carrying a piece of the map toward predetermined destinations: mountain monasteries, coastal havens, fortified churches, and allied enclaves hidden from royal control. Above ground, the remaining Templars held their position, defending the archives long enough for the fragments to vanish into the night. By dawn, the fortress had fallen. Flames consumed manuscripts, armor, and stone, marking the destruction of one of the Order's greatest strongholds. But the map survived, not as a single artifact, but as a scattered legacy carried through hidden roots and into the shadows of history. The knight that sought to erase truth, instead, ensured its preservation. Through the courage of those initiates, the forbidden map slipped beyond the reach of kings and inquisitors, becoming a myth whispered beneath the ruins of an obliterated world. Its fragments remained hidden, each piece carrying a fragment of humanity's forgotten origins, waiting for the day when they might be reunited and reveal the story the world was never meant to know. Centuries after the dissolution of the Templar Order, the remnants of the forbidden map lay scattered across continents, hidden within monasteries, buried in vaults, and sealed inside walls built by men who died without revealing their secrets. Time eroded empires, burned libraries, collapsed kingdoms, and rewrote histories. But the fragments endured, protected by silence rather than authority. Their existence was hinted at only through obscure footnotes, mistranslated documents, and coded references in manuscripts dismissed by scholars as myth. Yet the map continued to surface in the shadows, appearing briefly in private collections, before vanishing again, always moving, always shifting, as if guided by the same invisible hand that once protected it. It was not discovered in a single moment, but assembled across centuries by individuals who did not understand the magnitude of what they had found. The first modern clue emerged during the excavation of a collapsed chapel in southern France, where workers uncovered a sealed alcove containing a metal cylinder coated in resin. Inside was a fragment of parchment depicting a coastline that did not match any known medieval map. Its contours aligned instead with satellite imagery of a distant continent, not charted by Europeans until hundreds of years later. Scholars dismissed it as an anomaly, a curiosity, a hoax created by someone with knowledge of modern geography. Yet the parchment's age, confirmed by radiocarbon analysis, forced a re-evaluation. Its pigments were medieval. Its fibers matched Templar manuscripts. The fragment was authentic. Suddenly, a whisper of fear slipped into academic circles. Fear that a piece of history long suppressed had begun to re-emerge. Years later, another fragment surfaced in a private library in Portugal, tucked inside a manuscript on celestial geometry, copied by a Templar scribe in the early 14th century. This second piece aligned perfectly with the first, completing a coastline and revealing geometric markers used to measure latitude with precision, unknown to medieval navigators. The discovery sent shockwaves through the few researchers who recognized its implications. If these fragments truly belonged to a larger map, then the Templars possessed knowledge light years ahead of their era. Yet the academic world hesitated to acknowledge such a possibility. It threatened too many entrenched narratives, challenged too many established doctrines, and exposed gaps in the historical record that institutions preferred to ignore. As fragments continued to appear, some sold anonymously at auctions, others recovered from forgotten archives. The puzzle began to take form. A researcher in Armenia uncovered a section containing symbols identical to those carved in ruins predating the Roman Empire. A monastery in Cyprus revealed a piece containing astronomical calculations rooted in Babylonian star maps. A private collector in Scotland allowed limited access to what appeared to be the central portion of the map, containing the sacred geometry that governed its structure. Though the fragments were dispersed across different regions, they shared the same ink composition, parchment treatment, and coded annotations unique to Templar initiates. The realization grew undeniable. The Forbidden Map had survived the fall of the Order, hidden in pieces by men who understood its importance more deeply than any historian alive today. The process of reconstruction, however, proved dangerous. Those who attempted to assemble the fragments faced pressure from academic institutions, governments, and private organizations who feared the consequences of revealing a map capable of rewriting global history. Some researchers lost funding, others were discredited, silenced, or forced into obscurity. A few vanished altogether, their notes confiscated by parties unknown. The map had not lost its power to inspire fear. The same forces that sought to destroy it in the Middle Ages continued to resist its revelation in the modern world. Knowledge capable of destabilizing historical authority remained as threatening today as it was 7 centuries ago. Despite these obstacles, a quiet coalition of independent scholars, archivists, and explorers continued to piece together the fragments, guided by the geometry encoded within each section. Their work revealed that the map's purpose extended beyond geography. It documented ancient trade routes connecting civilizations across oceans, charted star paths used by early navigators, and encoded mathematical relationships, demonstrating a level of global understanding lost for millennia. The map was not a relic. It was a message, a statement that humanity once possessed a unity of knowledge, now fragmented by time, conquest, and suppression. As the reconstruction advanced, the truth emerged with increasing clarity. The Templars had not created the map, they had inherited it. In the modern age, the Forbidden Map stands at the threshold of revelation. Whether it will be fully reconstructed or remain forever fragmented depends not on chance, but on courage. To accept the map's implications is to accept a version of history unbound by the limitations imposed by medieval rulers, colonial expansion, and institutional dogma. It is to acknowledge that humanity's past is deeper, broader, and more interconnected than any textbook dares to suggest. As the final fragments wait to be uncovered, the map continues to challenge the world, inviting those brave enough to see beyond sanctioned narratives. It remains a beacon for seekers of truth, a whisper from the ancient world reminding modern civilization that the greatest secrets are never lost. They are merely hidden until the right moment to return. The journey through the origins, guardianship, fragmentation, disappearance, and modern rediscovery of the Forbidden Templar map reveals a truth far greater than the artifact itself. The map stands as a testament to humanity's enduring pursuit of knowledge, a reminder that truth cannot be extinguished by fire, decree, or suppression. Across centuries of destruction and silence, its fragments survived. Preserved by the hands of those who understood that knowledge is not merely inherited but protected. The Templars did not defend the map because it was valuable. They defended it because it revealed a version of the world untouched by political manipulation and untouched by the fear that shaped medieval rule. In preserving it, they preserved humanity's deeper memory. A memory older than kingdoms, older than empires, older than the doctrines that sought to restrict the boundaries of human understanding. As modern scholars reconstruct the map piece by piece, a story emerges that transcends geography. The map is not simply a representation of land and ocean. It is a portal into the intellectual legacy of civilizations erased from mainstream history. Every symbol carries echoes of ancient astronomers. Every coastline hints at forgotten voyages. Every geometric alignment whispers of cultures that understood the harmony between heaven and earth. The Templars did not create this knowledge. They inherited it from those who came before. They recognized its power and understood that its survival would one day challenge the narratives carefully constructed to control the perception of human origins. Through their silence, they preserved the voice of the ancient world. The Forbidden Map exposes the fragility of historical narratives shaped by authority. History is often presented as a straight line, clean and uninterrupted, but the map proves that the true story of humanity is a mosaic. Civilizations rose and fell. Knowledge was shared, lost, revived, suppressed, and rediscovered. The Templars lived during a time when access to truth was restricted by those who feared its implications. They became a bridge between ancient wisdom and future generations, carrying fragments of a world that refused to disappear. The rediscovery of the map does not revise history. It reveals it as it always was, complex, interconnected, and far older than medieval minds were allowed to conceive. The modern world stands on the threshold of a revelation the Templars anticipated but never witnessed. As fragments continue to surface, the map challenges assumptions about exploration, navigation, and the development of ancient cultures. It demonstrates that humanity's ancestors were not isolated tribes confined to small regions, but participants in a global exchange of ideas, technology, and exploration. The map's accuracy suggests an understanding of astronomy, geography, and mathematics that defies traditional academic timelines. Its presence forces scholars to confront a possibility long dismissed: that the ancient world was far more advanced than the histories written by conquerors allowed to remain. And yet, the map's greatest legacy is not its geographical precision, but its endurance. It survived persecution, war, fire, political suppression, and centuries of silence. It survived because individuals across time recognized that truth belongs to humanity, not to those who claim authority over it. The initiates who protected the map did so, knowing they would never see the world return to the level of understanding their ancestors once possessed. They preserved it not for themselves, but for a future capable of embracing the magnitude of its implications. Their sacrifice ensured that knowledge, no matter how deeply buried, would rise again when the world was prepared to receive it. This is the immortal legacy of the Forbidden Templar map, the endurance of truth. As its fragments reunite, they form more than an artifact. They form a reminder that history is not a rigid structure, but a living phenomenon shaped by those willing to seek beyond the boundaries imposed by fear. A reminder that the world humanity once understood was vast, interconnected, and filled with wonder. A reminder that knowledge, even when suppressed, finds a way to survive. Through the Templars' devotion, through the silence of their initiates, through the courage of modern explorers, the map emerges once more, an eternal witness to the story the world was never meant to forget. If this journey through the Forbidden Templar map awakened something within you, if these hidden truths, ancient echoes, and long-buried revelations stirred your curiosity and ignited your imagination, then stand with us and keep this legacy alive. Subscribe to the channel, activate the notifications so you never miss the next chapter of this unfolding mystery. Leave your mark in the comments to share your thoughts and theories, and join a community of explorers committed to uncovering the forgotten history of our world. Your support ensures that these stories, once silenced by the shadows of empires, continue to rise, breathe, and reveal the secrets humanity was never meant to forget.